We are now joined by Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Hunt Brothers Pizza Ford for Team Penske. We will open it up for questions. If you have one, please raise your hand and we will get a mic over to you. Who would like to start? I'll come down here in the middle.
Hi, Joey. Terrell Covey with the Portsmouth Herald and Foster's Daily Democrat. I know that you guys are always looking forward in this sport, but could I ask you to look back and reflect on your first start up here as a New England guy coming up to this track to get your first opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many memories for me anytime I pull in the Loudon here. Probably some of my first ones is just coming up here to watch, watching the Busch North Series and going camping out here at my parents'. I think it was like 96 or so when I came out here to watch. I was 6 or 7 years old. It was a fun race to watch. I remember I was hooked after that. I was racing quarter midgets at the time, but first time you see like a professional sport, as a kid, it's magic, right? And it was at the Magic Mile, so go figure that. But it was a really special thing. And then starting my first Cup race here went really hard, but then getting my first Cup win here was great, and then winning here, I think it was back in 14 or 15 when we won here last. So, yeah, definitely a lot of great memories here, and they all come rushing back as soon as I drive back into this place. Yesterday when we landed and driving in, and it they all come back as you see the sign driving down the road and pulling into the infield.
Additional questions? Come down here to Bob, and then we'll go over here in the back.
Bob Parkhurst, Fox Sports. Are you aware of the new darkness policy where they're going to set a time? They're going to tell you what time the race is going to end rather than a lap. And then the next time, once they set this time, once that clock hits that time, leader crosses start-finish, then the next time they take the white, and the next time they take the checkered.
Okay.
Rather than saying like the lap is going to end
at
lap 75.
I'm
like
curious
that.
At what point are they going to tell us that?
I think earlier than later, but you never know. I'm curious, as a guy who's on this bubble, does that make things any easier as far as strategy potentially?
Yeah, the last thing you want as a competitor is to be, competing and the strategy of the race dictated by the unknown, right? That's the last thing you want, right? But if hey, the race is going to end at 8:30, whatever it is, right? Okay, we know that, and we can play the strategy off of that, instead of it being, well, hey, we're gonna run another 50 laps, and you're like, well, geez, so we would have changed our strategy completely if that was the case. So. If that's something that they can broadcast even going into the weekend, right? If we kind of have a general idea of when the sun's going to go down, I'm sure if the skies are overcast and all those type of things, it probably changes that number some. But I think having a ballpark idea, if there's weather in the area and it seems like we're going to be pushed late, what that's going to look like is, I think, a great idea. I like it.
We'll go ahead in the back right here. Yep.
Amy Worry, chasing the checkered. Piggybacking off of earlier, now that you have a family and the kids are growing up, how does it feel to return to New England with them? And have you been able to create any more memories with them here in New Hampshire, the greater New England area?
Well, I'm hoping to create one this weekend. That would be great. But no, there's still a lot of memories being made for sure. And I got Hudson up here with me this weekend, and yeah, we have fun. Anytime we go to a racetrack, it's kind of, it's just more enjoyable when your kids are there, especially when you win, and those pictures and all that. I don't know how much he'll remember when he gets older anyways, but I know he's about the same age that I was when I came here for the first time now. So definitely it's a pretty sentimental thing. Like, it's kind of a special thing for sure.
We're going to come right here in the middle to Jerry.
Jerry Jordan, KingdomTheTires.net. As Bob pointed out, you're on the kind of cut line on the bubble is there more pressure being that you're a two-time champion, can you handle it better knowing what you've got to do? How do you handle, these next few races trying to make the playoffs?
Yeah, it doesn't really change much. It just kind of puts you in playoff mode a little bit sooner because you're racing as if you're in the playoffs, right? You're not kind clicked in to where you're already in. You're just racing to get playoff points anywhere you can, right? You can't take as big of risks on certain things because you can't afford last week to blow a tire. Can't afford to do it, right? So, yeah, it definitely adjusts some of your setup choices, some of the way you drive, some of the way you call the race in general. I mean, it goes through your mind. It has to go through your mind. At the same time, you still know what a win's worth. So you got to go out there and win the race. You don't just say I'm points racing and just lay up, right? You can't do that. But, you definitely got to play it smart and not be, caution to the wind type of situation. Whereas if you were locked in, you maybe go for that, right? If there was an opportunity to win the race or finish 20th versus the call that may be a solid 5th place finish, you probably can't afford to finish 20th right now, right? I mean, it's some of those things that got to go through your mind. And it may change just on the speed you have in your car and stuff like that. It can go back and forth. And emotions can probably get in the middle of that when you're making decisions on the racetrack, right? It's one thing to say it here, it's another thing to say it when your helmet's on. But that's our sport. That's the position that we're in right now. I feel good about our chances of getting in. But, yeah, it's not as comfortable as we want it to be, that's for sure.
We'll come right here in the back, right there, and then we're going to go to Pat, and then to Lee.
Hey, Joey. Kyle Dalton with Heavy.com. So we're coming up on the halfway point of the season. How do you grade your team's performance through the first 18 races? And then do you have a highlight just for NASCAR as a whole through the first half of the season, your assessment of what's going on as a whole?
Yeah, I'd say for us, obviously not where we want to be. We just talked about not being locked in the playoffs. At this point, you kind of expect to be locked in the playoffs for the 22 team, right? But, to put a grade on it, I don't know. It's kind of hard to do sometimes because it depends on the weekends. And honestly, it depends on the type of track. You look at the short tracks here recently, it's hard to not say it. We're pretty comfortable with it, feel good about our chances of winning on short tracks. The mile and a halves don't quite feel that way yet. A lot of work to do there. So probably depends on the track that we would grade differently. And then, highlights on the season, boy, I mean, he has quite a few really close finishes. If you look at the sport as a whole, right, I mean, that's some really cool things that have happened there. I'd probably have to say the finishes, the way these things have gone, have been pretty exhilarating.
All right, we'll go to Pat in the back, and then over here to Lee.
Pat Ticola, NASCAR.com. Thinking like bigger picture, diamonds are created under pressure, right? Like, is it almost beneficial to the 22 team to be going through this process and having to clean everything up and kind of focus on just making the playoffs?
I mean, I think the team does a good job being under pressure, right? Our team knows how to handle it because we've been in the playoffs so many times. We put ourselves in the championship four so many times that we know how to handle these situations when your back's up against the wall. It's not ever comfortable, to your point, right? Like, it's not where you want to be. It's not fun, but it's not out of the norm for us either to know how to handle these type of scenarios.
Go to Lee.
Lee Spencer, Series 6 of NASCAR Radio and Catchfence.com. Do you think that Shane Van Gisbergen will have as much of an advantage on you all if it's dry in Chicagoland when we get there in 2 weeks?
I don't think he'll be as much of an advantage, but there's no doubt that, street courses seem to be his wheelhouse. There's no doubt he's good on road courses as well, like the typical road courses. He's great at those as well, but it did seem like a street course. He felt way more at home when we all felt like a fish out of water going around that racetrack. And then you added rain, and it's like it was perfect for him. And he capitalized as he should. All of that, I mean, I think for 99% of the field, that was the first time for any of us to do anything like that. And we all have very limited experience of racing in the rain. And we also had a lot to lose. We had nothing to lose, right? Like, you look at those walls and you're like, oh, it's a lot of points in those walls, And, for him, who cared? So, I think all those things weighed into it for sure. I think this year, now that we all have a general idea of what we're going into, we can prepare for it, right? It's hard to prepare for something when you're blind and you don't know what it's going to be like. I'm sure he's still going to have a lot more experience at this stuff than we do, but I think we'll close the gap a lot. Yep.
Are there any other questions? We'll come over here to Dustin.
Dustin, J-Ski, you mentioned how Team Penske is, among the favorites on short tracks. Why do you feel like that is at places like here, Phoenix, Gateway, last week?
I can't tell you why. I have some pretty solid theories on why that is, but I don't think I need to say exactly what those are. But it definitely seems like it fits our package better. Whether it's aero, engine, or setups, you can put it all together and just have a better package on these short tracks. Also the aero package is different as well, right? The short track rules package is quite a bit different. So, I somewhere in all that, we're putting together much better than we are in mile and a halves.
We'll go to Deb and then to Lee.
Deb Williams, Auto Week. Joy, to kind of build off of what Dustin was talking about, in regards to the mile and a half tracks this year, what caught you off guard about the new Ford Dark Horse Mustang design that maybe you didn't anticipate in racing on those tracks?
Yeah, I think anytime you have a new car, there's going to be a learning curve. It's easy to get excited because you got this new car and, oh, man, this is going to be great. But you also got to be a little realistic and say, boy, we still got to learn what this car wants. And we don't get enough practice these days or tests to go and, figure out what it wants, right? We're going purely off of wind tunnel numbers on how to set this car up where it wants to be. And we don't have the opportunity to really go out and A/B things over and over again to get the perfect ride height. And how much do you trust the aero numbers that are coming in, right? Because there's, as much as you say the wind tunnel's the wind tunnel, but there's a lot of different things that happen there that's different than the racetrack, right? It's a perfect environment. They don't have dirty air at the wind tunnel, right? You can't get the cars as low as we do here at the racetrack. So things change from the wind tunnel to real life. And I think trying to understand what those differences are and how to maximize it just takes time. Yep.
Go to Lee.
As we get closer to the point where, like a Joe Gibbs Racing becomes a true factory team and they have the combination of adding 2311, so you're looking at, maybe 7 cars in the future. Is it more important, since you guys are kind of leading the charge for Ford, to ensure whoever gets in that 21 car is the type of driver that can give you as much information as possible, just like Blaney and Cindric, so you guys have more information, especially, as you said, you're trying to develop a car, you're relying on the wind tunnel, you're relying on simulation. Is it important that the person in there is more of a contributor so you can compete against the Hendrick and the Joe Gibbs Racings of the world? Absolutely.
Teamwork means more now than it ever has. Back to the point that we don't get to go testing and very often or practice with any substance of where we can change things. It's more important than ever that we work together, knowing whatever everybody's setups are. We all set up our cars, the process at least is the same. We go to a racetrack, we have a plan, we can talk about it after our practice is here and actually learn from each other. Working together means way more now than it ever did in my past in this sport, because of the way the schedules are, the weekend schedule is, and how similar the cars are. Right? Before, sometimes a lot of teams built cars differently from their shop, so they weren't even the same to start, as far as bodies being hung and those type of things. So now everything's pretty much the same. You got to be able to trust your teammates' feedback when you're making your adjustments or learning from the post-race week meetings that after you go through everything. It's just the little things that matter more than ever. The field's closer than ever, and we need that. You need to be, you need to understand that if you want to win races, you have to have teammates that are going to push you, and you have to understand that it is much better to finish second or third to your teammate than beat them and finish 20th. It's just the facts of where we're at these days. So, because if we get into one of those grudge matches, you'll never none of us will win. And then it all falls apart. So, yeah, it's different today than it's ever been, for sure. But that's an important key role, for sure.
Are there any final questions? We'll take one last one here in the back.
Hi, Taylor Knight with 22 News in Springfield. I'm just wondering if you can explain how important qualifying is today with this flat track and the rain, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Qualifying's it's important everywhere we go. We talk about how close all the cars are. If you're only a tenth faster than the car in front of you, you're probably not going to get around them. So if you can start up in front of those cars, it just changes your whole day, helps your strategy, helps your pit stall selection. So many great things happen from it, and I was just being towards the front safer in general. So, yeah, we want to qualify good.